The grid goes down on a Tuesday. By Friday, the stores are empty. By Wednesday of the following week, there's an informal market running out of a shuttered hardware store parking lot. And nobody is trading dollars. Nobody is trading gold. The currency is water. The currency is the ability to close a wound without a hospital. The currency is light after dark. I've watched people spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 preparing for exactly this scenario and walk into it completely exposed. Not because they didn't prepare, because they prepared for the wrong thing. I've been building and stress testing preparedness systems for over 2 decades. I've run 3 extended grid down simulations. The longest was 11 days, full blackout, no resupply. I've tested water purification methods across 5 different source types, including contaminated runoff. I've drilled wound management without clinical support. I've built cold storage food systems, grown food from seed through full harvest cycles, and sourced every piece of gear on this list myself with my own money. Nothing here is sponsored. Nobody paid me to say any of this. What I'm giving you is what I kept after I threw out everything that failed. Let me spend 2 minutes on gold, because it's the one I get the most pushback on, and then I want to spend the rest of this video on what actually works. People say, gold has been valuable for 5,000 years. That's the argument, the whole argument. And they're right. But here's what that argument actually requires to be true. It requires functioning markets. It requires established trade routes. It requires someone on the other side of the transaction who also believes in gold's value, has something you need, and is operating in a context stable enough for that trade to make rational sense. Remove any one of those conditions and your gold does nothing. Post-war Germany, 1945 to 1948. Reichsmark is gone. The formal economy has collapsed. What are people actually trading? Cigarettes, coffee, butter, nylon stockings, not gold, consumables. Things that satisfy a need the person in front of you has right now. Not stored value, actual value. Venezuela, 2016 through 2020. People who held gold jewelry did eventually manage to trade it. What they traded it for was food, medicine, and generator fuel. And they traded it at catastrophic discounts, a fraction of theoretical market price, because the person accepting it had no reliable way to sell it forward. Gold was only as useful as the next willing buyer. In a long collapse, willing buyers are rare. That's the counterparty problem. Gold requires someone to also believe in gold. Cash is a government promise. When the government's infrastructure collapses, the promise collapses with it. Crypto requires powered devices and a functioning internet. In a grid-down scenario past 2 weeks, your digital wallet is a password protecting a number on a server no one can reach. None of these are the answer. The answer has been sitting in hardware stores and farm supply co-ops for decades, underpriced and ignored, because the industry selling preparedness profits from recurring anxiety, not permanent solutions. 7 items. I'm going to walk you through all of them. Calcium hypochlorite, pool shock granules, 68 to 78% concentration, sealed container. 1 pound treats up to 10,000 gallons of drinking water. Stores for 10 years without meaningful degradation. Cost per treated gallon is fractions of a cent. No membrane to replace, no battery to charge, no proprietary cartridge. I ran this through 11 days of field use pulling water from a creek behind my property. Treated every gallon my household used for cooking, drinking, and wound irrigation. 0 illness. The chemistry works. Here's why the retail survival industry doesn't push this hard. A container you buy once is a closed transaction. The industry profits from open-ended ones. Filtration systems with proprietary replacement filters. Maintenance schedules, recurring purchases. A 3-pound bag of pool shock costs under $20 and solves your water problem permanently. That's the transaction they don't want you to make. Buy the pool shock. Buy a second bag. Store it in a cool, dry place and date it. That's your water handled. open pollinated seeds. Specifically, not hybrid seeds, not AIF1 cultivars. Open pollinated means the plant breeds true. You grow it, harvest it, collect seeds, plant them again next season. The genetics hold stable across generations. A solid seed collection covering 12 to 15 vegetable varieties costs between $20 and $60 and provides, in principle, a self-renewing food supply indefinitely. I've run this through 3 full-grow seasons, the same seed stock, saved each year, performing consistently. Tomatoes, beans, squash, kale, carrots, herbs. Varieties chosen specifically for my climate zone and for storage performance post-harvest. Here's the architecture the industry built against you. Hybrid seeds dominate every retail garden center. They produce plants whose saved seeds fail to germinate or revert to unpredictable combinations. The crop is terminal by design. You have to come back and buy again. The company engineered itself into your permanent supply chain. That's not agriculture. That's a subscription service with dirt. Open pollinated seeds break that loop. And in a collapse, the person holding a self-renewing seed stock is not just surviving. They are the beginning of a food economy. Every community within range will want to find them. A wound that doesn't get infected in a functioning society is a minor inconvenience. You drive to urgent care, it gets closed, you get a prescription, you go home. Remove that infrastructure and the same wound, a gash from broken glass, a puncture from a nail, a deep cut from any of the 1,000 sharp things that appear when systems stop working, becomes a mortality event. Sepsis moves on its own schedule, and that schedule is faster than most people expect. Wound closure strips, not bandages. Steri strips or generic equivalents. Adhesive strips that pull wound edges together while tissue repairs. A box of 100 costs under $15. Pair that with betadine solution for irrigation, a topical antibiotic ointment, and nitrile gloves. That 4-component kit handles a substantial percentage of the injuries that occur in a high-labor physical collapse environment. I've used this kit in field conditions. A deep laceration from a handsaw during a long blackout simulation. No sutures, no clinical support. Proper irrigation, closure strips, daily monitoring. Clean heal, no infection. The kit worked because the technique was right, which is why the last part of this item isn't a product. It's a $20 wilderness first aid manual. The book covers wound irrigation, closure technique, infection signs, improvised splinting. The knowledge does not expire. It does not need a battery. Buy it, read it before you need it. A quality handsaw, a fixed blade knife, a manual brace drill with a set of bits, a basic chisel set, the ability to cut wood, shape material, and join pieces without electricity is the foundational skill of every pre-industrial civilization that ever housed and heated itself. A carpenter in medieval Europe did not starve. The capability itself was the currency. Handsaw, $20 to $40. Fixed blade knife, $30 to $60. Manual brace drill, almost nothing at any estate sale. Full chisel set, under $30 used. Total outlay under $200 for a capability that functions indefinitely. No fuel, no batteries, no supply chain. I've used this exact toolkit during extended simulations, built a food storage rack, repaired a door frame that had swollen and warped, fabricated a basic water diversion channel. None of it required power. None of it required anything I didn't have on hand. The tools worked because they have no dependencies. In a grid-down scenario lasting more than a month, the people who can build and repair physical structures are the people communities organize themselves around. Be that person, not a tablet, not a hard drive. Not a PDF folder on a phone. Printed books. Specifically 3 categories. Medical reference covering diagnosis and treatment without laboratory support. Botany covering edible and medicinal wild plants in your regional ecosystem. and mechanical repair covering hand tool techniques and basic structural work. A 40-year-old Merck manual pulled from a used bookstore for $3 contains more clinically actionable medical information than any first aid app ever written. It doesn't need a software update. It doesn't need a charged battery. It doesn't go offline. I have a dedicated shelf, medical references, regional plant guides, structural engineering basics, food preservation techniques, seed-saving protocols. Every book was purchased used. The total cost was under $60. The shelf functions at 0 power draw indefinitely. Here's what most solo survival planning gets wrong. Human beings do not survive crises as individuals. They survive as nodes in functioning networks. Communities with internal expertise, shared resources, and reliable communication outlast isolated individuals in every documented long-duration collapse. Being alive is the prerequisite. Being useful to a network is what determines whether you stay that way. A physical reference library makes you the person people come to when they don't know what to do. That's not a small thing. A quality oil lamp designed for extended use, with stored lamp oil. A solar rechargeable lantern with a replaceable battery cell. The camping industry has spent 40 years selling disposable flashlights and single-use batteries because dead batteries are repeat purchases. A quality oil lamp purchased once, maintained properly, and supplied with stored fuel does not participate in that cycle. Productive hours after dark, for reading reference materials, for performing medical treatment, for planning, for the social cohesion that comes from people being able to gather and communicate in the evening, are a structural advantage. Every group operating in total darkness loses 3 to 4 functional hours per day. Over weeks, that compounds. I run both systems in rotation during simulations. The oil lamp for stationary work, the solar lantern for portable use. The solar panel keeps the lantern topped off. The lamp oil stores for years in sealed containers. Neither system has failed me. Light is not a comfort item. Light is an operational requirement. Unrefined, bulk sodium chloride. Canning and pickling grade. Sealed containers. A 50-pound bag costs under $15 and lasts indefinitely in dry storage. Salt preserves food through fermentation and curing. The two primary techniques that allowed every pre-refrigeration civilization to carry caloric surplus across seasons. Salt also has direct medical applications in wound irrigation and oral rehydration. I maintain a dedicated salt stock. It has rotated through food preservation use in every long simulation I've run. Fermented vegetables, cured proteins, brine solutions for wound care. The 50-pound bag I bought 3 years ago has been drawn down and replaced twice. At that price point, I don't think twice about rotating it. And in a barter economy, salt is universally understood as valuable, immediately, without explanation. Every community around you will want it. Every one of them will have something you need. Salt is the handshake. Step back and look at what all 7 items share. They're cheap today. They have permanent utility regardless of what infrastructure exists around them. None of them require a counterparty who believes in their value. They demonstrate their value directly, immediately, in use. And every one of them multiplies your capability rather than just storing it. Gold has the precise inverse of all 4 properties. It's expensive. Its utility collapses without a functioning market. It requires a willing buyer. It adds nothing to your operational capability. 2 items solve water and food permanently. 1 handles the medical gap that becomes a mortality risk the moment urgent care closes. 1 gives you the ability to build and repair physical infrastructure. 1 makes you the most informed person in your community. 1 restores productive hours after dark. 1 becomes your medium of exchange in a barter economy. That's the full stack. That's what I'd prioritize if I had to rebuild my preps from scratch with a limited budget. Start with the pool shock. Everything else follows from staying hydrated and alive.